Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 70. Models Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where I talk about my painting, modeling, and wargaming experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 videos a week and you stream every single night. Could you possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week was a very good week of modeling, and we had some very interesting wargaming news. And let's get the news out of the way first. One thing that I forgot to talk about a little while ago, and one brand new model, both big releases from Games Workshop. And in a way, I don't think they're of equal quality. So first, let's look at the older one, which is the new release of a Demon Primarch. Tremble before the rage of Angron, Demon Primarch of Khorne. A new Demon Primarch model, which is kind of a huge deal for 40K. It doesn't feel like as big a deal as it could have because there's been a lot of Greater Demons of Khorne models, like a lot of them, but this is Angron, the Angron. And it's fine. I don't know. There's something that just doesn't feel right about it. And I think it's just because the other two Demon Primarch models are so good. I mean, Magnus the Red and Mortarion. And then Angron he doesn't look that special or unique or imposing or powerful. He just kind of looks like a regular Khorne bloodthirster. It's weird. I think the design philosophies for him feel very different to the other two. Where the other two, I feel like they really sort of capture like those characters. I mean, Mortarion is kind of doing like a Jesus on the cross sort of a pose because, you know, there's tragedy and he was kind of coerced or tricked into following Nurgle. And then, and Magnus, like, you know, he's got his arms out and he's got a lot of skin showing, which is kind of the thing that's always been there for Magnus. Like both those models are so kind of imposing and cool and unique and also very different to other things that exist. I mean, there's sort of like plague dragons and stuff out there in different like games and fictions, but they're not Mortarion. They're not a weird giant like medieval knight with huge butterfly wings, like disgusting butterfly wings and a gas mask. And you know, similarly with Magnus the Red, like there's sorcerers, but there's not like beet red sorcerers with giant nipple horns. But Angron is just kind of a red demon monster guy. And like that is what he is as a Demon Primarch. But I feel like there would have been ways to make him more unique and interesting. He just looks like a normal bloodthirster, and his pose, like Angron is like wildly aggressive and vicious, but his pose kind of feels like just like a spawned unit in an RTS where he just kind of like bobbing. Like I can just kind of imagine his animation, his little sprite, just kind of sitting there waiting for you to give it an order. It's fine. And his armor is very clean. Whereas I would kind of imagine Angron's armor just to be completely destroyed because he's always fighting and warring. But like it looks like he gets his armor, you know, he gets it waxed at least once or twice a week. And sure, like there's probably warp shenanigans that keep his armor pristine and perfect, but I think his armor could be more beat up. Really, the only thing that makes this guy Angron is the World Bearer's shoulder pad, or World Eater's shoulder pad. World Bearer's shoulder pad. World Bearers. Eaters. World Eaters. I didn't look it up, I just knew it. The only thing that makes him that is the shoulder pad and the kind of mechanical tendrils that come out of his head. Other than that, he looks just kind of normal, but like, I'm sure this is correct. Let me just say a few more things I also don't really like. His wings remind me of some of the old Warhammer Fantasy Battles units because their wings would always be in slightly awkward positions because I think like the Crypt Horrors could be built as another unit with bat wings. And I remember their wings are kind of like very vertical because you're meant to stack them next to each other in their coherent square bases. And so Angron's wings, they just feel very vertical. Like he's kind of tucking them in like he doesn't want to cause a ruckus. He doesn't want to accidentally knock things off the store shelves. And so he's just very carefully walking, keeping his wings right where they need to be. And then his wings, they've got these weird, chunky, organic knuckles, which is not a terrible idea. Like if you look at like an x-ray of a hand, it looks like madness. There's just so many little bones that make up that hand. So it's not incorrect for there to be all of those weird shapes, but you don't really see that in wings. They look really fat and strong, which is, I suppose, good, but also it looks really weird. I mean, he's got these giant slabs of meat with a little bit of wing hanging off the end. I don't know. It's hard to design a demon Primarch and have it be everything that it should be, but what I would think for Angron, because just Angron just was completely lost to his own just violent tendencies. I think it would have been really cool if they made Angron a lot more animalistic. Like he's got hooves on the back legs. He's got hooves on the back legs, but he also has like the double tyrannid little dew-clawy claw, which you see that on the Tyrannid Hive Tyrants, the flying Hive Tyrants. It's got kind of a hoof, and then it's got two little spiky spooks on the ends. And Angron also has that. It's kind of cool looking. It's not really a thing from animals, but yeah, it's just something I noticed. He's got a Tyrannid looking foot and a Tyrannid looking tail. And Tyrannid looking wings, if we're gonna be totally honest. But I think it'd be cool if he was a lot more animalistic. Like what if he didn't have arms anymore? Like he had legs like an animal has legs, and just claws like an animal has claws. He's just barely a human anymore. Because he's not really a human, he's a giant demon monster. But this giant demon monster looks like, you know, he could curl up on the couch and just hang out with the boys. I don't know. Please let me know how wrong I am, because I'm sure I am. But it's just not. If I lined them all up, you know, Magnus the Red, Morty, and this guy, I feel like he doesn't stack up. He doesn't look as good as the other ones do. Which is too bad, because this is one of the guys. I mean, I'm sure Gilliman is going to meet with this guy, and they're going to have a big fight, and neither of them are going to die, and I don't know. There's just this model. It's just not cutting the mustard. It's not Jimmy and my jams. If I had to create Angron Demon Primarch, I would be really tempted to grab one of the other Bloodthirster models, or maybe Be'lakor, because Be'lakor is just such a cool, weird model. And like kit bash and convert it and give him armor that's just shredded and just give him talons. And like Khorne is not huge on like, I mean Khorne, they all have mutation as like part of their chaosy thing, but I would really make him look like disgusting and just a hound. He does and doesn't have like a human face. He kind of has like a Disney villain face where it's like long and it's got beady little eyes. I think it'd be more interesting if he had like his face is like growing into like a dog's face or a wolf's face. Maybe like a little bit of exposed skull. Just evidence that he is in constant battle and war. And just, hey, you know, maybe the World Bearer's shoulder pad, you can just see that it's the World Eater's shoulder pad, but it's just scraped and destroyed from years of just being ground down, and have his wings just be completely shredded and tattered because he just can't control himself, he can't protect himself, he just fights. But this guy looks very capable and very, very handy and very good at fighting and tough-ish. I don't know. But yeah, this is a big chungus of a model from Games Workshop, and I don't know if I love it. But that brings us right around to the other big old model Games Workshop made. Put the pedal to the metal aboard the rugged Leagues of Votann Sagittar ATV. So this model, one little, you know, let's be really complainy here. Don't love the name ATV because they already used the name ATV for the Space Marine little buggy. And so I'm not a huge fan when different vehicles share all of the same keywords. I feel like ATV actually works really well for this model, where the Space Marine one, it feels like they just couldn't come up with anything better. And it's kind of hilarious that the ATV was given to that model because presumably every vehicle in 40K is an all-terrain vehicle. Like there's no, keep it on the street, keep it under 80. Like there's no vehicles like that in the world of Warhammer. Everything can go everywhere, half of it hovers. But anyway, the Sagittar ATV, this model kind of rocks. It looks like not at all a Games Workshop model. I don't think there's a skull anywhere on here. It's not really grim dark. It's just a really, really cool modern sci-fi vehicle. And I really, really dig it. I think it's very, very neat. It does sort of look in line with the other squat models, but it also sort of doesn't. Like the normal little squatty guys look a bit silly, and this doesn't look silly at all. It looks a tiny bit silly. Like if you kind of smoothed out some of the armor plates and like made the cockpit canopies bright pink, it would look a little bit like a Ninja Turtles toy. But I really like it. I like the wheels. It's kind of a roll cage, kind of an engine exhaust looking thing that's kind of curling its way around the whole vehicle. Really nice paint job. Like they've got a little bit of like heat discoloration on every joint with some really nice stippling. Some big clear bubble canopies that don't actually look that clear. I'm assuming that these are probably 3D print prototypes. And the real ones will probably be like the basically perfect clear acrylic canopies that they put in some model kits, which I really like. I like when it kind of makes it more fun. It's a little bit like a Gundam kit where there'll be different types and different colors of plastic in the box. And then once you've assembled it, it's kind of perfect. And so yeah, I like when they do little things like that in the box. I know Games Workshop messed around with kind of like a softer rubbery plastic for some of their basing decoration kits, like the creeping vines. And it'd be really interesting actually if they incorporated like some of those types of sprues in with a normal kit. The antenna of this vehicle would maybe be a great candidate so that it bends instead of snaps, because I bet you're gonna see a lot of these out there in the world without that antenna, for sure. Oh, I don't know how many times I've seen like games of Warhammer and games of 40K being played where like there's spears that just kind of end in random places and they're flag guys who are kind of holding a flag, but there's no flag. That sort of stuff like that is just kind of funny to me. But yeah, that would be actually really interesting if they included a rubber sprue for kind of bits that are in very precarious spots. Yeah, I think this model is excellent. I have a lot of like sci-fi reference books and behind the scenes making of movie books where they show all of the concept art. And this is straight out of one of these books. I really think it's neat. I think it's well designed. It looks fairly believable. I like the asymmetrical top where on one side you have the turret, which looks like a very good turret. Like it's small, it kind of makes sense. It's got like a battery on the back of it, and then it's got the chain carrying the ammunition to it, which is a lot better. A lot of the Space Marine vehicles, especially the newer Primera Space Marine vehicles, the weapon systems on them don't make a lot of sense because you can't tell like where is the energy coming from? Where are the bullets coming from? Where is its power source coming from? Whereas this looks like a totally believable, like you could see this on an aircraft carrier. It would not look completely out of place. I like it a lot. I think it's really, really good. On the side, kind of like in its gut, because it does kind of look like a little bit like a bug or like an animal. In its kind of on its side, it's got two little like plugs. And they probably are like a plasma battery. You can see there's similar pieces on some of the 40K terrain, but I like to think that you unscrew one and it's like the gas cap, and you put in the diesel, you put the diesel fuel in. I really like it. I think this is a great vehicle. Designed for surviving the inhospitable alien terrain, the Sagittar is a rapid response ATV suited for scouting operations and lightning-fast armored offensives alongside Hernkin pioneers. Its armored carapace is durable enough to shrug off anything from rock slides to plasma blasts, making it an ideal spearhead for any League-sponsored colonist effort. Probably exaggerating with the can survive plasma blasts, because like plasma is like one of the more powerful things in 40K, like literally star guns. And I'm sure it's like, you know, it could probably shrug off like a plasma pistol or a plasma gun, but like what about the plasma destructor like from the Titan? That's probably a bit of the old hyperbole. It's this new thing on the internet these days. But I think it's a really, really cool kit. And it'll be interesting. Last week I did a huge just look at all of the squat things. I'm like, but this is pretty cool. And if, you know, maybe Games Workshop makes, let's say, just pull something out of the air, a train in this kind of aesthetic and idea, the squats could be looking pretty cool. The squats will probably get a flyer of some kind. What kind of a flyer will that look like? Seeing this as the first real look of like a vehicle technology that we've seen from the squats. We saw the bikes, and I liked the bikes, the kind of Zamboni, like kind of punk 50s aesthetic. Like it was kind of interesting. But this I really like. It's really neat. I like it a lot. That canopy looks like something straight out of Alien. Where it's kind of got like, it's taking a little bit from history, like the old, like the I think it's the B-1 bomber that had a giant kind of flat front face with just a grating to keep that glass somewhat protected. And this has kind of got the same thing going on. Just a little egg nestled right in the front of this beetle-shaped vehicle. Really like it. People have in the past motorized Games Workshop Space Marine vehicles specifically. Like I've seen a Land Raider that actually had motorized and they like molded and casted each track. I feel like this would motorize super easily and would be really funny. Just it'd be adorable. Yeah, I think this is a great model. Good old Games Workshop. But speaking of Games Workshop, I got a fair bit of modeling done this week. And let me start off with the dumbest thing I did. So I was really feeling the Eldar, and I think they're really cool. And I've always liked the Dark Eldar. The Tantalus is one of my all-time favorite miniatures on Earth. I love it. It's a giant double-ended boat from Forge World. It's not double-ended. It's like a boat that's kind of been cut in half, and then the two halves have been spread apart, and then it's got this beautiful arch connecting the two, and then a giant sail. At Adepticon, I saw somebody had painted one up, and then they added rigging, like on a classic clipper ship. It was so cool. But anyway, I was scrolling eBay, as you know, I'm one to do, and I saw a box of Dark Eldar, Drukhari, some Drukhari Hellions, $20. I was like, that seems like a really fun painting and modeling project for $20. And so I picked it up, and these models are pretty darn good. The human riders, some things are perfect and some things are a little wonky. These are very, very modular. Like if Games Workshop created these today, they would probably somewhat monopose where the bodies and arms are, or the bodies and legs are one piece, and then you have the option of arms and heads, which I think I do prefer that. I've called it in the past the hybrid kit, where it's a hybrid between monopose and multipart, where you do have plenty of options of construction and kit bashing options, but it looks really good because these guys, the legs look impeccable. These are Green Goblin gliders. Let's just say what they are. They're Green Goblin gliders from Spider-Man, but they're standing on it, and then they have a little chain hooking on. They have like a little harness around their waist and a chain hooking onto the front of it. So they're flying super fast, and this chain is kind of dragging them along. But then the awkwardness begins when you attach the body to the legs, and they all have this really awkward forward lean. And they do that so that you can kind of have them leaning back and you can have them leaning forward, and it sort of works, but it sort of doesn't. They kind of have a little bit of a stance like the classic orcs. And if you've ever looked at an orc, and kind of contemplated what their spine looks like, these guys are a little bit in the same boat. Also, I would say their heads are 10% too big. Like Games Workshop does tend to make heads and hands larger, which makes sense because it's easier to paint and it kind of looks right in this Games Workshop style. But kind of when you're wearing skin tight clothing for the most part, they just look like they got giant noggins. But overall, I think they're really, really good. I like that they're weird staff double-ended sword, blade, spear weapons. I love I wonder, so there's guns on the front of these Green Goblin gliders, and I suppose they're controlling them with their feet because their hands are busy. Maybe it's voice control, like, hey Siri, fire the shuriken catapults on the front of my glider. But like in the middle of combat.
Okay, I found this on the web for fire on the front of my glider. Check it out.
It's on silent. I really like the Dark Eldar Hellions. I think they're really cool. I can't wait to paint them up. I never ever do this. I never work in sub-assemblies because I usually think they're dumb and that the time you save painting things up separately is time wasted. But, and you don't really save time because now you've created 2 models for yourself that you have to paint up separately. But I do think for the Hellions it will make sense because the whole guy is gonna paint very differently than the bike. And so I think being able to paint these 2 things separately makes a lot of sense. And they attach really, really conveniently. You just hook them onto the front and you lean them back and then they're ready to rock and roll. See, I think these models are really, really cool. And I think the Eldar will provide a really interesting challenge where they're gonna be kind of different than a lot of the other stuff I painted. You know, I've worked on a lot of kind of clean, the Space Marines aren't clean, but they're cleaner. And then I have some other things that are pretty clean, but I'm gonna try to make these guys really dark. I really like the Hellraiser movies. I think I'm gonna give these guys a little bit of a Hellraiser-y treatment. But speaking of other things I worked on, I put together a new HQ for my Space Marines in the Space Marine Sergeant in Gravis armor. I got this pupper at Adepticon, and I really, really like how big and heavy and chonky he is. I love that he can take a chainsword so that I can give him hopefully the relic, the relic piece of war gear, the Teeth of Terra, which I always used to give to my classic squatty Space Marine Sergeant back in the day, or Space Marine Captain back in the day. But I really, really like this miniature. I have chained his weapon to his arm, just like I have done with all of my Black Templars. Well, all my Black Templars who hold chain swords. The bolt guns is just a huge hassle. I didn't want to. But one thing I noticed when I put this guy together is his head is a 1/4 mile back there in his chest, and it looks ridiculous. And I compared it to my other Gravis models, and the other ones, they have a little bit of this going on, but it's not this bad. It could be that the head I picked, Gravis armor, it has a different helmet, where it's kind of got a little bit of like a stormtrooper, those 2 little tubes in the front. And so maybe those 2 tubes help to fill out that space a little bit better. But man, it looks weird. And if you look at it from the top, you can see his head is between his shoulders. Like his head is in the right place. He just has such a wildly massive, long chest that it's a little bit ridiculous. So I might have to either come up with some sort of a kit bash or a conversion to help soften that look a little bit, or maybe I'll just cheat his head out in front of his arms a little bit. Kind of like how Terminators, like their heads really stick out the front. Maybe a Terminator helmet. Maybe I have to play around with the helmet. I don't necessarily want to give him a Gravis helmet because I like the look of the Gravis helmet on just normal Gravis pleb guys, but on HQ usually I like to have a bear head because I think bears are really cool. They're giant animals. No, I like to have a bear helmetless head on my Space Marines, my Space Marine HQs, because I just think it gives me an opportunity to paint a face, and I feel like it makes the model feel a little bit more alive and like a person. Whereas, you know, if they're trapped behind a mask, there's a little bit more, you know, they're a faceless minion. And so, yeah, really, really like this Gravis Captain. And he's missing his shoulder pads and capes because I'm gonna paint those separately. Even though I never do it, I'm gonna do a tiny bit of sub-assembly on this guy too. And I gave him the most tactical rock of any Space Marine I've seen. It's a big old wood chip. I have another little wood chip on there. He's standing on a little bit of a rock. Yeah, he is up high on like a 1/4, almost closer to a 1/2 inch of rock under his feet. But I like it. I like having my HQs really modeled heroically. And this guy's basically on a plinth. Lot of fun. Really like this miniature. That was all of the modeling I got done, but I also got a fair bit of painting done too. It's been a hot minute since I really feel like I've been churning through the kill teams, but once I got that Tau kill team done, like it seems like the kill teams are just rolling off the assembly line. I finally finished my Tempestus Scion. Oops, all Tempestus Scion kill team. And I really love how these turned out. These guys, I was watching a lot of Marco Frissoni, not just Mecha. I was watching all of his videos basically, and I absolutely love his videos and his work and his amazing ability to paint miniatures. And so I painted these almost 100% with the airbrush, which was a really, really interesting challenge. And I don't know if it worked perfectly, but I don't mind. I got a little bit of paint spillage everywhere, but I think it actually all works out in the end. And I had painted 8 of them because I thought I had a plan for what to do with the last 2, but I couldn't really come up with like a really good video topic for them. So I just whatever, I'll just finish them. And so actually there's 8 of them are painted almost completely with the airbrush, and then 2 of them are painted almost only with a brush. And it's pretty darn difficult to tell them apart. I think what the airbrush did for me was it let me paint up the 8 really quickly. And then what the brush did for those 2 was it also let me paint them really quickly. I think the airbrush worked perfectly when I had a giant assembly line of them because I could be quick with the airbrush, but doing it on only 2 guys, I would have actually not been quick because I would have had to keep, there's a lot of colors on these guys, and so I had to constantly be swapping colors out of my airbrush, which is not a big deal if I'm spraying 8 guys. I'm still saving myself time, but if I'm mixing paint just to spray 2 guys and then wash it out and put together a new color, not saving time. And I could tell which ones were painted with the brush and which ones are painted with the airbrush. But I mean, even now, I'm having a little bit of trouble picking out which ones I did with the brush. This is a brush. And of course, my Kyria Draxus acting as my sergeant for this squad. This squad is it's a little bit of a storytelling in 40K, where they are. Kyria Draxus has maybe done some Xenos shenanigans to create some super capable servitors that fight alongside her. And speaking of kill teams, I also painted up the Eldar Corsairs, the piratical Eldar, and these models turned out really, really nice. I've been trying to play with colors that I don't use a lot, and I can't say that I use much orange in my day-to-day painting. And so orange and hot neon green, I think it turned out very, very nice. And I've been using a lot of Army Painter speed paints because I really like them. I really like that they give me kind of a base coat and some simple highlights and shadows right off the bat, and then I can work up from there. Because for me, my least favorite part of painting is base coating, and then those first few layers of highlight where it's like they need to be there to have the model have some presence, but really the fun stuff for me is like painting eyes and freehanding and those final highlights and edge highlights that kind of make the finished model. And so I've really been enjoying Army Painter speed paints, but I think I might try to tackle another project that's only airbrush. Maybe I'll have to watch some more Not Just Mecha videos. Kill teams. I have a few more kill teams. I think I have one more kill team that's still in a box that has to be assembled. But I'm getting close. I'm getting darn close to every single kill team. What is this? I think this is 15 or 16. It's not bad. It's not bad. The game's not that old. And speaking of doing a little bit of kit bash and converting, on this I kit bash and converted to make them kind of my own. And so for these guys, I did just a tiny little bit. It's not even kit bash. It's really just using a proxy model. But this is the Visarch model, which I really, really like. I got the secondhand on eBay, and boy, was it rough. But it painted up okay. This is the Visarch, famous from his adventures with Yvraine. But he looks like the rest of these guys, whereas some of the other Eldar models don't, and so I think he is a proper leader to the Corsairs. It also helps that he's about a head taller, because as we all know, the tallest one is the leader. I have more kill teams. And speaking of things that make me happy, our Patreon. Over there, we have a Miniature of the Month club. This month's miniature is the futuristic Elven Warlock. We also have tons and tons of super cool terrain STL, perfect for your miniature war games. You also get access to one extra episode of EOBO Week, voting what models I paint live here on YouTube. By the way, I live stream every single weeknight from 9 to 10 p.m. Central. Come hang out. These guys are painted live and it was tons of fun. And you also get access to the weekly live hobby hangout where we all hop into a Discord server on a Friday night and just chat the night away, arguing about Angron and talking about Star Wars. We also have merch, link in the description. good week of Warhammer, good week of Wargaming. I wish I got this much stuff done every week. Then I feel like I would actually be making decent progress on my pile of shame. And I am making progress on my pile of shame. Very slowly, because I keep doing stuff like buying Hellions off of eBay, but it's getting there. I need to do a follow-up video one of these days to show that, like, maybe either to show that the pile has dramatically decreased, or maybe just shock myself into acceptance of, I maybe should start putting my foot down and like getting things done. But I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna keep having fun. So, bye.